5-game away losing streak over. 3 points gained. Clean sheet earned. Perfect start to 2025 continued. And goodbye, Goodison. FA Cup notwithstanding, we're really going to miss you. Presented by 24/7 Services, who were in the house on Wednesday. Let's review Everton 0, Villa 1. New manager bounce denied. Again, for the second game running. Isn't that weird? There is this saying, though, the sequel is never as good as the original. But isn't it strange how similarly this game played out compared to our last 3 visits to the blue half of Merseyside? I mean, tight game. Villa gets a goal and keeps the home side off the score sheet, goes home happy. We're probably a little bit fortunate that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is in quite a scoring funk right now because he had a very decent chance near the end. That would have been brutal, conceding there. In the house and watching on, official new signing, Daniel Malen, and a lot has been written about the Dutchman, including words like frustrating and inconsistent. But when you look a little bit deeper, there are other players at Dortmund who can be described the same way. In fact, that club in the last few years is desperately seeking stability. Could that be a factor? Now, while Everton and Villa were tangling at Goodison Park, back in Birmingham, another very high potential, highly touted 18-year-old was in the house, supposedly signing papers and taking a medical, and that's Turkish left-footed centre-back Yasin Özcan. We are stockpiling some of Europe's best before their fees and wages get too high. Sort of like Tidiane Gomis. Apparently, we're very close to him. 4 million euros to get that signing across the line. But think about it. I mean, we're hoarding them. Then we're going to let them ripen and develop. And then sometime in the future, we're going to enjoy the sweet fruits of our labor. Now, the other one that just popped up that is very exciting, if true, is a Monchi favorite from Sevilla. Not quite a French international yet, but 24-year-old, 6'3" center back, Loic Bade, who could play both center back positions. He's right-footed. And presumably we'd have to move somebody out, of course, as we always do, and that is probably Diego Carlos, and it would be an upgrade on Diego Carlos, although moving his wages on would prove to be a challenge. I'm not sure if this is meant to be instead of Oscar Mingueza, who we've been linked to, or on top of Mingueza. But if Mingueza chooses a different club, then I'm afraid be prepared for more Ezri Konsa at right back because that's not in Bade's profile. He is a pure and out-and-out center back. And then with Louis Barry, now that Unai Emery has had his eyeballs on him and has had direct interactions with him in a professional Premier League environment, it sounds like they value him even more highly than they did while he was at Stockport, and they may just re-up his contract before loaning him out. How about Celtic circling and hoping to take him on? I mean, this is a great situation. Again, more stockpiling of youth, and I'd be dying to know why, for example, they think he might be one for the future, whereas, say, Jadon wasn't. Welcome officially to the Holy Trinity Show, which aims to nail down the 3 key issues or moments that defined Everton 0, Villa 1. Samir was back in the mixer wearing an iconic 90s Umbro track top to mark the final visit to an iconic venue. And Paul White of We Are Villains on Facebook also made the trek north, so plenty of great footage from a grand old ground that we will all miss dearly as football continues to modernize and, dare I say, homogenize. The key numbers would indicate a close game if you looked just at the numbers, but I thought Villa were superior in most categories, and with the eyeball test, I mean, we created more dangerous situations, we weren't opened up, and we dealt with things, especially when the Toffees got down the sides of us. How about Tyrone Mings as an extra stat? 11 clearances in this game, 6 with his head. Tackles 1 stat was also wide in our favor, which I think reflected a very good outing by our central midfielders. I don't think I've even officially welcomed you inside the parlor yet. Welcome! First away win since October 19th at Fulham. Yikes! The double done over Everton. We have not lost to the Toffees since being promoted back to the Premier League, with one exception, Carabao Cup last year. And 4 changes to the team that beat West Ham on Friday. Emi Martinez, a virtual spectator in this one. Luca Dean, almost 3 years to the day since joining us from Everton. Amadou Onana returning to Goodison Park for the first time. And it was nice to see Jacob Ramsey getting a start as well. The shape was interesting because at times Yuri Tielemans was the farthest player forward after Ollie Watkins, with Rodgers and Ramsey flanking him on either side, but then he would come deeper to collect the ball, and I've said this numerous times, I don't think that's Yuri's best position. And a prime example is the great chance he had relatively early in the first half on a ball played in by Ollie Watkins. A left-footed player there probably hits that first time. Take nothing away from Tarkowski. It's a great tackle. But he's not in those positions very often. Now, if Malen comes in and plays, say, the Diaby role, which I think he's going to play straight up the middle because that's what he preferred the most, well, that would mean that a pretty good midfielder is going to sit out. And who's that going to be? Perhaps it's going to be circumstantial based on the opponent. This could easily be a top 3 issue, but Villa's game management, especially at the beginning and the end of the match, where recently we've had some problems. I mean, think about it. A beleaguered team down near the bottom, home game, new old manager coming in for the first time. You'd think the players would want to get out on the front foot and wind the crowd up. And instead, Villa kind of took control, even created a couple of decent chances. And instead of it being noisy, it actually got a little bit uneasy feeling. And then that theme continued into stoppage time and the closing moments of this game when Villa ground it down to a halt. And you know we've had problems conceding goals late in games and in stoppage time. And we've also had a problem conceding them early. In fact, when Emi Martinez made the save off of Doucouré in the middle part of that first half, that meant that we weren't going to concede a goal on the opponent's first effort on target for what would have been the 15th time this season, unofficially. Big issue number 3. Onana on thin ice. I didn't think that foul was a yellow card 8 minutes in, especially when you compare it to Gana Gueye flying in on Boubacar Kamara. But still, this meant that Amadou Onana had to be on his best behavior for 82 minutes. And you know, everybody was trying to wind him up. I mean, I think this would have been a very emotionally draining experience for him, his first game back to Everton. And maybe this beautifully exemplifies what his biggest attribute is as a player: maturity. I'm really warming up to this human being. Did you see his personalized kit delivery video from this past week? I mean, that was so effortless for him. He's such an engaging guy who speaks, by the way, 5 to 6 languages. You know what that's a sign of? Extreme intelligence. I mean, you could have all the skill and physical attributes a player could want. If you can't onboard fine details or even big ideas tactically and technically, you're never going to be elite. And he's also ingratiated himself so seamlessly with our supporters. He might be the most mature 23-year-old I've seen in a long time. Morgan Rogers is not far behind, but he's 21. And although we paid $50 million for him, I think he's going to be worth every penny. There were some VIPs in the house for our Goodison goodbye on Wednesday. Very important Pauls, because 24/7 Services has an office in Liverpool, so this is an annual event for the boss. Here he can be seen telling our new signing, Daniel Malen, look, I'll improve the finishings in your new residence if you could improve the finishing on the field. And then he's in Monchi's ear saying, listen, I'll fix your roof if you could fix the right back problem. Always nice when a Malen and a Monchi can go, hey, aren't you Paul Handsaker from 24/7 Services, sponsors of the Holy Trinity show? Can we get our picture with you? Paul was already on a high before the win because the company was just awarded a contract to update an entire complex in Oxfordshire with 150 101 units, and the team did one flat, and the owners loved the work and the value it brought so much. They've now greenlit all the kitchens, bathrooms, boilers, the decorating team to come in there and do their thing. That's how much they appreciated the work, and I think 24/7 Services could be doing a lot more of this kind of thing. What a testament to quality and value. And when it comes time for you to rejuvenate a property, well, you know exactly what to do and where to do it. Big issue. Jacob Ramsey really could have and probably should have scored at least one goal in this game. I don't know if it was a big chance, the one that came right at the end of the first half where he pelts it and he knew right away, I should have scored there. And then he has another one in the second half from close range where he swivels. I know the ball was kind of awkward, but I feel like every one of those chances that goes begging takes us one step closer to JJ opening his account for the season, and he really needs it, and so do we. We need scoring from everywhere. Big issue number 2, brilliant Booba. And I apologize if I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but this is a player that Villa really does need to tie down, and apparently that process is well underway. This was odd too, and great. Between he and Onana, they won 6 of 7 aerial duels. I mean, you could expect that from Onana. He's one of the best in the world at it, but Boubacar Kamara, what a nice little bonus to have from your central midfielders. And Kamara, well, he was effective in the air, on the ground, all over the park. It was just a fantastic performance. He was the game's man of the match. Kamara also did a great job covering for, especially on the right side, the players that roamed forward. Sometimes it was Konza, sometimes it was Cash, but he was always there. And he played 9 balls into the attacking third, so it was a very two-way game from Booba. And I think maybe the best contribution he made was the one where he read the danger, then covered for Martinez and ended up controlling the ball right on the goal line as if it was anywhere else on the field. I'm telling you, this guy and Onana together could become one of the fiercest partnerships if they stay fit anywhere. They're young, very clever, very physically imposing. Is this the start of our elite midfield? And the number 1 big moment that defined Everton 0, Villa 1, Ollie on target. Watkins must love Goodison Park because 2 seasons ago he banged in a penalty into that same goal, and I think it was a couple of seasons before that he scored a great goal at the other end. And it was a big shout to start Ollie Watkins because he kind of went the distance on Friday, didn't he? And you'd think in a busy week Emery would like to rotate, especially because Duran hasn't played, but Emery also seems to like his players to have to fight their way back into the 11. Our Ollie had a fantastic chance to score way earlier. Similar circumstances too. Pickford caught way off his line, and I could hear certain Villa fans all yelling in unison. Duran would have scored that one. Maybe he would have, but maybe Duran might not have even gotten into that same position in the first place because this is one of Watkins's things, his ability to get into the right positions up front. But Watkins wasn't going to miss the next one, and here again is where the Watkins-Rogers combo bore fruit again. That's the 16th time this season that they've combined to score a goal, and Watkins needed it, and he needs to keep doing it. It was a clunky change in possession that went Villa's way, so a bit of a break, but after that, Morgan Rogers clocks the Watkins run right away and plays a perfect Pickford teasing ball in behind, and it caught the Everton goalkeeper in no man's land. And from there, just a perfect and beautiful finish from Ollie Watkins as he slots it. And it's funny how sometimes he makes those situations look easy, other times they look labored. And now I guess the big question is, who starts at Arsenal on Saturday? My gut still says Watkins, just because of this little run he's on. But then again, only 2 days rest between here and the trip to Arsenal on Saturday. Just to recap the individual categories I like to update, the away record improves. We scored first. It was an Ollie Watkins goal, and hallelujah! A clean sheet. Did I not say there was a good chance of this happening a couple of weeks ago at Everton? Oddly, though, Villa has the highest table position for a team with a negative goal difference. We really could use more goals. But we didn't concede early or late. All in all, a very satisfying day. The Sill Hill Brewery star performer was difficult to choose for all the right reasons. There were so many candidates on Wednesday, and the service I use rated Emi Martinez as the highest among Aston Villa players. And although I thought he was steady, I didn't think he was necessarily spectacular. Boubacar Kamara, as I mentioned already, could be a star performer every single game the way he's going right now. But I'm going to give it to Luca Dean on the 3rd anniversary of his arrival from Everton to Aston Villa. He is not a big man, but he is so clever, so sublime. He doesn't need to be big. Do you know he won 2 aerial duels and 5 of his 7 ground duels? I'm sure he's had better numbers on the attacking side of his game, but defensively and support-wise, he was always there. And he had to deal with a lot of pressure. I mean, Villa played through pressure beautifully in this game, as nervous as that probably makes a lot of people. Now, during this weird Guinness shortage everywhere, it only makes sense to toast Luca Dean with a North Star hopped porter. Just look at this handcrafted, quality, Birmingham brewed perfection. And by the way, the brewery can ship a keg to your establishment if you've run dry. As for the trip to the Emirates, I'm actually a little bit relieved that Arsenal did go on to win it, because if they didn't, they'd be a very surly lot on Saturday. And they actually fell behind to Tottenham and had to score 2 late first half goals. So they expended a lot of physical and emotional energy. I mean, it was the North London derby. It's the biggest one they have. And sometimes there is this trend where after a big game like that, you tend to have a letdown, especially if it's only a couple of days later. And may I remind you that the last team to beat Arsenal at their home patch was Aston Villa, thanks to goals by Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins and a defensive masterclass by Diego Carlos. Could we possibly do it again? Because on that day, we almost literally ended their title hopes. The thought also crossed my mind that maybe Villa is still harboring a grudge from opening day at home this year, where we played so well. I mean, our game plan was perfect, and we created 2 huge chances, but Ollie Watkins just was not sharp that day for several reasons. Could we see Daniel Malen make his debut at a club he once played for? Probably not straight from the off, because that's not Unai Emery's style, but as a cameo, the stars could be lining up for our new signing as we attempt to keep this very positive start to 2025 rolling. Just over halfway through a very busy and demanding month of January, 3 wins out of 3. Sounds like some progress on the recruitment front, some Champions League fixtures to look forward to again. And even though it seemed like results went our way in some cases this week, winning didn't really move us that far up the table. That's how tight it is in that top 10. Quick turnaround now, but until Saturday, savor it, be positive, and of course, up the mighty Villa.